Hey, everybody, it's Friday night, and we'd like to welcome you to the ASEA 5, or what may in the future be called just the show. So anyway, welcome to the ASEA 5, or the show, where we meet every week. I'm Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, formerly an anesthesiologist and pain specialist, now a full-time Redox educator, and I have my friends from San Antonio, Jim and Ann Glenn. Jim is a money man, and Ann is a nutritionist and personal trainer. And tonight, well, we're missing Dr. Lee, who's at a family reunion that seems to have lasted 3 weeks, but he'll be back next week and holding down the show by himself. He's going to have a dental panel next week. Yeah. So tonight we have some very special guests. It's a lot of fun to introduce them. A couple of fan favorites, Dr. Marty Morin, who is from Maryland. He is an academic veterinarian from Arbor University. He's published many papers on both animal and human health, and he worked at the NIH. He's been a veterinarian for over 50 years, worked at the NIH, as well as a couple of international pharmaceutical companies. So he has a wealth of information, and he's an expert on redox signaling molecules. And we also are joined by Beth Wafford, who hails from Kentucky, and she has a ranch there and raises horses and has used these products in her horses. And she brings a wealth of information too, and runs the animal webinar for us. So we're very, very happy and pleased to have both of these people join us. So what we like to do is kind of start with, how did you find out about redox signaling molecules? How was it brought to you? What did you think about it? How did you vet it? That's a little joke. Dr. Morin, we'll start with you. So,
isn't it ladies first?
Oh, you said ladies first. Okay. Then Beth, we'll start with you.
I was actually actively looking for some way. I've spent my entire life. My husband and I have been in the thoroughbred horse industry for my whole entire life, and I was actively looking for something that I could do to give back to people. So I was just, I kind of had, and when I truly believe when we put it out there, then it comes back to us. So I have a very, very dear friend named Rob Ward, Dr. Rob Ward, who was a dear friend of mine, and we traded wellness tips all the time. So when he called me and said, this is probably the most incredible breakthrough in medical science and health science in my lifetime, I said, I've never heard you talk that way. So I sat up and took notice, and I said, I am definitely wanting some of this stuff. I don't know what it is, and I don't care. If you say it's good, it's great. And that was 11 years ago, and it's been the best thing I've ever done.
Great. That's fantastic. And so you are a triple diamond with the company. So you've had a lot of success. You've shared it with a lot of people, and you do a lot of training on using it with our furry friends. And of course, can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's a human product, but right. It works at the cellular level, right? So it should work on anything that has a cell.
And that's a very good point, Maureen. The veterinary arm of the FDA is even more stringent than the human one. So we have to be very, very careful. And veterinarians cannot market this in their practice because it would look like they're marketing a food supplement. So, but there's certainly, there are ways they can suggest it to people, but really, instead of going to your veterinarian, you just, any live animal, all cells work the same way. So when I started, my husband had some remarkable results with the product, and I just started thinking, okay, great. So we have a lot of animals, and we started just giving all these animals Redox, and the feedback was remarkable. And I think because I was probably one of the first professional animal trainers that signed up in ASEA, I think I kind of got earmarked as the animal person, which I love. I think it's wonderful. So that's how we started the monthly animal webinar.
I love it. And, we don't have any horses, but we do have plenty of dogs and cats. And I love, all of our animals love it. In fact, I had to go to the pouches because if I left an unattended glass of ASEA somewhere, I would come back to find a cat head in it, drinking it. I mean, they just love it. So, and they love the gel too. Kind of crazy.
And I think, Maureen, one of the best things about talking about what this product does for our animals is you can't placebo an animal. So when people are get very, very worried about the placebo effect, and that's a very real thing, there's no doubt about it. But guess what? You can't placebo an animal. So I think that's what makes the animal stories have a little more punch to them sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really what, as two physicians, my husband's a physician too, when we saw some of the things in the animals and they're not going to do something to please you, no placebo, it really does get your attention because, you can often think, if it doesn't make sense or it seems too good to be true, you can talk yourself out of it. But with animals, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Beth, did you start using it on the animals quickly, or did you and Rob discuss that? How did that flow? What did that look like?
We were back in those days, we were kind of just flailing around saying, oh, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this, because we knew it wouldn't hurt us and it wouldn't hurt any living thing. So we were just kind of like unconscious. We were just giving it to everything that walked and plants and everything. So the way our business is set up, we work with very young racehorses so that they come to me. I call it teaching equine preschool and, kind of first grade. And then this time of year, it's more like 10th grade. So they really are at this stage in their lives, they really have a full complement of redox molecules because, young animals and people, they really have a full complement. And then as we age, then it starts breaking down. So I think we have used it on some older horses here that Bill and I own. We own as few horses as possible because we get paid to train for someone else and we have to pay the money out if they're our horses. But so I have used it with some of our own horses and had some remarkable results. And that's the best thing about the animal webinar. If you go to animalwebinar.com, and that is a password protected site, but there are over 35 webinars of people sharing stories of all species. So if people want to go and check that out, then I think it's a wonderful tool.
That's awesome. How did you incorporate the Renew 28 6+ years ago?
That's a very good question. I love the spray bottle because horses, when they're hurt, when they come in and they bash themselves up, they're like Labrador puppies, except they weigh 1,200 pounds. So they crash into each other all the time and they're banging their heads and they're they're thoroughbred race horses, so they're kind of wild. But when they come in with these banged up and lacerations and things like that, I usually, because obviously the gel is more concentrated. However, if I can do something that I don't have to touch them, but I can spray it. And remarkably enough, I was sure that these young racehorses were going to wig out when they heard that of the spray bottle. And, they do that at first, they kind of do this. And then as soon as it touches whatever issue it is, they go, and they just melt because they love it. It feels really good. So I have a tendency to use the spray bottle, which we know works inside and outside. But if I have something like a swelling or something like that, and heat in a leg, then I'll put the gel on that.
That's awesome.
Can you get through the hair with that? Do you find?
Yeah, it's best. Usually bumps and bruises are on the lower leg. I mean, that's a huge generalization, but that's where a lot of them happen. And the hair is so thin there. Ideally, it would be great to shave it. And definitely for dogs and things like that, if they have an issue and it's not on their belly where there's not much hair, then obviously the real challenge is getting it through the hair and into the skin, because that's the only way the molecules can work. However, ingesting it, that's why I love the liquid so much, because getting it inside the body, you don't have to decide where to put it. The body does. It'll immediately.
That's awesome.
And somebody is asking about how to give it. My animals drink it right out of a bowl. They love it, or they'll lick the gel right off my hand.
Non-metal, right, Maureen?
What's that?
No metal.
No metal. Yeah, no plastic bowls, glass bowls.
Okay.
Yes, and plastic syringes. But yeah, and you know what? Let me do our disclaimer. We always forget this part. We are medical professionals here, but this is not a medical product. It's not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent anything. what it does do is we ingest these molecules, we use them inside our body and topically because they help our cells work better. So it allows our cells in our body to do what it is meant to do, which is to heal itself. And it does a whole bunch of other really incredible things too that bring great health benefits, like turn on beneficial genes. So, we don't really delve into the science a whole lot here. We can tell you where to go and find that science so that you can read the studies and watch even videos by Dr. Ward, like Beth had mentioned. But we just like to discuss this because it is a breakthrough technology and we love it. We love what it does for the people that we love and care about and the furry people that we love and care about. So,
That's right.
Now, hey, real quick, Beth, with horses, because I grew up on a horse farm as well up in Ohio, what is the best way to administer it to larger animals? Is there a best way with food, not with food?
Yeah, that's a great question because those people who have horses, that any medication or anything that is set up to be given orally to a horse is very viscous. It's very thick, like a paste, because they try to spit it out right away.
Right.
We can't mix anything with our Redox product. So if you try to give it orally, yes, if you hold their heads up, long enough, it will get through the lining of the mouth. But always when you drop their head, they go, bah, 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 and they'll spit some out, which drives me nuts because I can't stand it when they're not getting the molecules inside them. So early on, and I wish I could say this was my idea, it was another guy way early on when we first started said, the rectal tissue is just as absorbent as the tissue in the lining of the mouth. So by giving it in rectally, then you never lose any of the product. It goes directly through the lining of the rectum and it goes directly wherever. That's kind of hard for us as conventional Western medicine people think, because we think it has to go through the system and it does not have to be metabolized. So it can go just as quickly into the system to where it belongs through the rectum as it is through the mouth. So that's what seems to work really well with horses.
A great avenue. And, we use that as an anesthesiologist. We use that route sometimes in children and in adults as well. But you were worried about the horses being upset about the spray bottle. Yeah, I can only imagine what they think about the other end.
No. Well, except that that's the way from the time they're babies, that's the way they have their temperatures taken. So it bothers people a lot more than it does horses. Most horses don't even care because it doesn't hurt or anything.
Oh.
So they just don't. They kind of say that feels kind of strange. I've never had a horse, balk at it. So.
Nobody kicked you. Well, great.
How about the hooves? If there's an injury there, do you just apply it right to the hooves too?
Well, that's more difficult. That's more difficult because the hoof itself, the hoof wall is not absorbent. So I always suggest, and most people that have horses understand this, when you're trying to grow more hoof or you're trying to treat something, you rub it. That's called the coronet band, the little band right at the top of the hoof. And we rub it really, really a lot. We rub and massage it into the coronet band, and then it will help the whole hoof.
Awesome.
That's the best way to do it.
That's interesting. In fact, I just had somebody on the phone who raises Morgans and rescues horses, and Dr. Marty was so kind to take a call with her because she was concerned about that. I guess her horses have a tendency, and we're not diagnosing, treating, or anything, but something called foundering, and she was wondering about putting it on the cuticle. Yeah. Yeah.
So, that actually, they would probably get. Founder is a systemic thing that ends up going down because horses, when the feet can't swell. Dr. Marty would be a much better person to tell you about this than me, but because the feet can't swell, when there's inflammation in the body and the body gets swollen, there's a pressure that comes down and pushes against that coffin bone inside the hoof wall, and it'll shove that. If it's bad enough, it'll shove that through the sole of the foot, and that's what you want to avoid. So I honestly think that treating it systemically is much even more effective than trying to get it, through the wall of the hoof. But Marty, definitely Dr. Marty's the one to address that as well.
Awesome. Now, do you find that just like with us that work out or athletes, we've got greater speed and strength? Do you notice that in the agility and speed of that horse? Did you see that right away, or?
Well, and another great question, Ann. Because of what we do, I mean, I basically teach school, so they don't have to perform, they don't have to race with the kind of things we do. And with thoroughbred racehorses, it's a difficult discipline to go into because the races are so short and so fast, and there are so many variables. Some guy did a little experiment with me, and he took it, and I gave him the product and everything, and he gave it to this one filly that was having trouble, and she won her next race. But he said, "Oh, but it was a lot cooler today, and she liked that footing better than the other time." So the problem is the more endurance that is involved with the discipline, with the equine discipline, the more you can actually see proof that it helps. We know, because of all the athlete studies that have been done, we know that it's helping whether they can tell us or not. But you can see the numbers improve when you have endurance athletes.
Well, and that's one thing we noticed with Rose Monday, who's the U.S. or the head coach of USA Women's Track and Field. She specialized in the 800, and she said it really didn't help with speed, but the most critical thing, and you'll know this with the horses, is being able to recover and being able to train. Without the recovery process, and that's one thing Rose finally really clicked with her. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the recovery. Being able to race harder, longer, and then also at altitude makes a huge difference as well with runners.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
absolutely.
So, equine athletes, again, the body, all cells work the same way. So everything you see about what's been proven with human athletes can be directly associated with horses or with any kind of animal.
That's great.
Wow, that's amazing.
Dr. Morin, how did you
get Marty anymore?
Yeah, I know Marty is.
Marty, we have the expert with Beth, and sorry.
Yeah, sure. Call me next time.
We still have a lot of hour left, so
yeah, this is the fastest hour in ASEA. So
take it away.
Tell us how you got introduced to it and what you saw and how you've used it. I know you've shared it with a lot of people, but also with your expertise.
Well, at the beginning of our journey with ASEA, it was just a phone call from a friend, like most people get, and John and Kathy Hayes suggested that they had tried a new technology and it was helping them, and were we willing to watch a video? I mean, it's about that quick. And we said sure, because we know who they are. And we watched their video. We checked on the safety factors of using the product because we never heard about it before. And I think she called on a Friday, and by Monday we had an order in the system. So it was a pretty easy decision for us. Not that I believed it, Maureen, but why not try it? And so within the first month, and so what Kathy Hayes didn't know when she called the house was that I was in pain essentially every day. And I had a shoulder that didn't work properly. I had a retinal swelling. I had prostate issues. I wasn't sleeping well at night. And so Kathy knew none of that. And so she just hit me at the right time. 3 months earlier or 3 months later, I might not have been interested. But she called on the day I was. And we started using the technology, and within a month, I knew it was working.
How long
I was kind of lucky, one of the early ones to figure it out quickly.
And that was just with the liquid, correct?
Just the liquid in that time, yeah.
How long ago was that?
Well, we started in 2013.
13, okay.
And then about 6.5 years or so ago, you started the gel. What'd you do with that?
We were at convention and we bought some gel the day it came out. And one of the very first things we did was to put it on Kathy's back. It was a little itchy that night. I don't know, dry skin or something. And I would tell you I could almost feel the character of the skin on her back changing as I was putting it on. It was that fast.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So, but many things. The gel does so many things.
Now,
We have a picture of Dr.
Yeah, show it.
Yeah.
Jim has it. I know that.
it'll take me. I'm sure Marty, you have it, don't you? Because what prompted you to do, as I always call it, this?
The face of ASEA.
Doing half of your face. That hurt.
Well, yeah, putting that tattoo down the middle of my face was really painful. But no, I was showing people, we got back from convention, I was showing people photographs of skin doing better, particularly with older people at that point, but it works in all skin. And they laughed at me. They said, "Hey, that's just Photoshop. You're just being a fool." And so I thought, my face has two sides, and I put it on one side for 28 days, called Renew 28, right? So I put it on for 28 days, and it made that big change. So
Yeah,
that was kind of fun. I didn't edit it down and put the words on there. Somebody else did that. And
Okay, so I
but
found
the
it.
image has gone around the world,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
yeah.
people see there's got to be something that can make that big a change in 28
Okay.
days.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, here we go,
We
guys.
use it all the time.
Here we
showing
go.
people.
Yeah, I show. This is in my presentation that I
Yeah.
show everybody.
Yeah.
So there he is.
I tell you what, getting rid of that tattoo was very hard.
So then we go. Okay, line down the middle.
What do you see?
No renew. 28 days after applying renew. It's just now. Okay, so here's my question. Why did you do that?
Well, because I got tired of people telling me I was showing them photoshopped images. It
So
was
is
just
that-
it was kind of to be in your face, tell me that this face 3D in color standing right in front of you is Photoshop.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do that. So it was an interesting little demonstration. I didn't plan on the thing going around the world, but that's kind of what happened.
You became famous. And a lot of people
Right.
don't realize, they don't realize why is it called Renew 28? Well, wouldn't you want your skin regenerated in 28 days versus what is your age? Like I'm 56. So do I want it to turn over every 28 days or do I want it to turn over every 55 to 60 days, which is the typical turnover? I mean, people should just try it and we have a gal in El Paso. She did her picture. She's 61, did a picture. She did twice a day of Renew and then 4 ounces of ASEA. And literally her picture 30 days later, it looks like her younger 40-year-old sister.
Yeah.
If it's doing that on the outside, what's it doing on the inside?
Whoa! Hello. There's a dog.
There's a dog. He knows that
It is an animal call, isn't it?
Yeah.
Join us.
Okay, Marty, real quick. There's a lot of people that are watching this for the first time ever, and they really have no idea what we're talking about. Or maybe they got a bottle and it says it's a dietary supplement made from salt water. Can you kind of real quick go over what are these reductive and oxidative molecules in the saltwater thing?
Well, one of the things about ASEA is we're going to tell a lot of stories today about how people are doing better, and they're going to sound too good to be true. And so you have to take your skepticism and set it down for a bit. Just set it down. You can be skeptical in 2 months, but just put it down and give this a chance to bless your life. But your cells make redox signaling molecules. That's a part of the design of the cell. And it doesn't matter, as Beth has already alluded, it could be human, it could be animal, it could be plant. In fact, if we sprayed ASEA on that lovely pasture in Beth's picture, the grass would do better. So there's just nothing wrong with this. And I like to put redox signaling molecules right there in the same category with oxygen. I mean, my cells are not going to stay alive very long if they don't have access to oxygen. And if my cells stop making redox signaling molecules right now, they're going to start dying. And so if you can think about that, how long could you live without breathing?
Yeah.
And it's about the same amount of time you will live without redox signaling molecules. To me, that's called vital, right?
Yeah.
You need that. And what happens, unfortunately, as we get older, we make less and less of these molecules. And what happens? Well, you look at a baby's skin or a young child's skin, and then look at mine. When you get to the other end of the spectrum, I don't know, Maureen doesn't age, but most of us do.
I'm aging backwards.
And so our skin starts to, as has already been alluded to, it takes longer to go from the bottom layer to the top layer and slough off down the shower. And if we had a way to speed that up, that would be a good thing, right? So, I love the fact that these redox molecules help cells function better. That's really what they do. And Maureen gave us the disclaimer. We're not here to tell you we're going to diagnose, treat, cure, even prevent any chronic health challenge. We just don't do that because the product doesn't do that. The product helps cells function better.
That's right.
And when cells function better, the body knows how to fix itself, and it knows what to fix. So if I take myself back to the beginning before I started redox molecules, that was my problem. My body wasn't healing, or it wasn't healing fast enough. And when I put the molecules back in, the cells started communicating again. My body started correcting all of my problems. It took 5 months on the shoulder, right? If I give up after the first month, I'd still have a bad shoulder. So, but when I really talk to people about ASEA, I usually use my phone, right? Because I like the fact that a cell phone is actually pretty useless. I mean, I can dial a number on it, but if there's no cell tower, if there's no satellite, there's not going to be a phone call.
Right.
I can dial on it, but without help from the cell tower or from the satellite, it's not going to do a thing. I could maybe write some notes in there, but it's not going to make a phone call. And your cells have to make phone calls. One cell to the other, one cell across to the immune system. Hey, we've got a fire down here. Do you want to send a fire truck, please? If that message doesn't get through, the fire keeps on happening. And you know what that would look like in a house? Well, it looks about the same in a cell. And so cells die. We don't have to have cells dying. And all the 5 of us are doing is we're supplementing, we're taking something our cells already make, and we're supplementing it back up to a higher level so we can function younger, living younger, longer. I'm all for it.
That's right.
Marty, what's causing people to age quicker? What's causing the damage? Are there things that we do, the food we eat, sometimes the water we drink, the extreme exercise? What are some of the things that cause some of the damage to the cells?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I think we can factor into the conversation about redox molecules tonight is having too few. And having too few starts at puberty, right? The teenager isn't behaving badly for no reason. Their hormones are all out of whack. That's a given. But in part, their hormones are all out of whack because they're becoming deficient in making enough of these molecules. Middle-aged people even less, older people even less. And so you start to get to my end of the age spectrum, and without a way to supplement the molecules, eventually you just sort of fall off a cliff where your body can't compensate anymore. And it isn't that you were so much older that day than you were the day before, but your ability to compensate has been missing. And yes, it could be toxins. Yes, it could be nutrients that are not what they should be. The lettuce looks like a lettuce, a tomato looks like a tomato, but it's not your grandfather's tomato or lettuce.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the nutrients.
Okay.
Well, and I would think, because we know it works on hormone modulation, it's going to be just as needed for that teenager as it is for every other age beyond that.
Right.
So,
But see, even we could go below puberty.
yeah,
And I mean, I have a 10-year-old grandson, and he doesn't like mosquito bites because he gets a big wheel.
Yeah.
And it's itchy. He doesn't like it. But you know what? He doesn't even ask. He goes and finds a Renew tube and slaps it on there. And one day I was over, of course, Kathy and I use these products, and he knows about them. And his grandmother came in, and she had a boo-boo of some sort. And he went and he got the Renew 28. Grandma, put this on. It was just sitting there. It was fun to watch my grandson educating his grandmother about redox signaling molecules. When kids figure this out and adults don't, you got to scratch your head a little bit.
Okay, real quick, can you, and maybe you did and I missed it, but the salt water, because people look at the label, and that's why it can never be sold at your grocery store. It's a dietary supplement made from salt water in Salt Lake City, and it has nothing to do with diet or nutrition. I just explained why it has to go through networking. But why salt water, Marty?
It needs an advocate. Well, our cells are little bags of salt water. Our body's full of salt water. They hook us up to Dr. Morin would hook us up in the pre-op for surgery with some isotonic saline for a reason. That's what's inside our cells. That's what's between our cells. And in the design, I think probably all of us believe in a designer, but he decided to take salt water apart. So sodium ion away from a chloride ion, a hydrogen away from an oxygen ion, recombining those things in our cells at the mitochondrial level, don't get stuck, but recombine these ions and make different different molecules, different charged molecules. And it's how the cells communicate internally. It's how the cells communicate to their neighbors and all the way across the body to the immune system and say, help. We need help. These molecules don't fix us. We're going to say that over and over again. These molecules make it possible for our bodies to fix themselves more efficiently.
That's great. Now, I notice you have behind some of my favorite nutrition back there. And so the Via line, I would think even for an animal, there's food out there that is not necessarily the best out there unless it's a science diet or another kind of good one. But wouldn't the nutraceuticals as well be good for our dog or cat if you break them open and add them to their food? I would think that they could get some extra nutrients.
Well, of course, the products that are in the Via line are products people know benefit humans. And so until somebody tells me that these are products that have been tested in animals, I just don't have any data about it. Okay. I know people are doing it, and I don't know how they're measuring it.
Okay.
Because one of the things, I know we don't really want to go deep into science on this evening's call, but that's what I did for a living, right? We would look for a problem and then try to design a study we could do to see if we could make a impact. We're going to try subject with product 1 or product 2 or product 3, 4, and we're going to try to see if we can measure a change using this, whatever the variable is that we're putting in there. And so one of the things I love about ASEA is that they have fabulous design on all their research projects. We're not going to talk about research projects, but you can find them, as Dr. Morin said. And so whether we were studying athletes, whether we were studying skin, whether we were studying oxidative stress, lowering oxidative stress, whether we were studying genetics, we found that this product always helps people move to a higher state of function. and in some cases does it quite rapidly. And it's not a little change, right? One of the criticisms of ASEA's research is that there were not as many subjects as they would expect to find, which is a bogus argument, because when your change is tiny, doesn't mean it isn't real. You need a lot of subjects to validate that small change. But in the case of ASEA, the change is huge. And so you could do the exact same experiment, but with many fewer people. So I watched the studies. I'm very impressed with them. I wish I had designed some of them myself. But the criticisms of ASEA's research is just not valid.
Yeah, I remember talking to you after the convention when they rolled out the genetic study, and you pulled me aside and lovingly, like you just did, corrected me on my thoughts on that exact study. And you said exactly what you just said, and that's extremely important to understand.
Yeah, in that gene study, we talk about it increasing gene expression from 20 to, I don't know, 31%. Depending on which gene you were looking at. And we studied 5, well, I didn't study it. The company studied 5 important signaling genes, and it talks about gene expression.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, that light is expressing its function right now. And if I go flip the switch the other way, it's going to get really dark in here, right?
Oh.
The difference in expression is on-off. And I think particularly the 5 important genes that the company studied, you want them on.
Yeah.
Which ones are those, Maureen? Do you know them, my heart?
The only one, excuse me, that I really remember is the EGR one.
Because we got that breakout.
Yeah, the 15 known pathways. So that's the one that has been extensively studied, and it's well known. And that's the one that, it has so many different, you can actually look up all the different pathways that they have studied and go down some rabbit holes. But we know that it has insulin signaling, thyroid signaling, serotonin levels, spinal cord signaling.
NRF2.
Yeah, NRF2, which is huge right now.
Rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many different things, and I have taken the time to look at all the other ones, and there's some very interesting things that, because we're not a medical company, we kind of, stay away from it. But what we know overall, and what we talk about, and what Dr. Morin was talking about with those genes being turned on, is it has to do with your heart health, your gut health, hormone modulation, inflammation in the body, and your immune status.
Yep. Pretty big deal.
That sounds like life.
That's not everybody I know. Yeah.
What I try to say to people is, you look at these 5 areas that Dr. Hayes just mentioned, and you could take any disease you want to mention, and you could find it in one of the 5 or a combination of 2 or 3 of those 5. And you would find that disease resides right there. So having one of these or multiples of these signaling genes off, and you don't want them to stay off, I'll tell you that. So I know one of the things Ann cares a lot about is this idea about being proactive about our health. And so the gene study is perfect for that, because if you know things in your day are adversely affecting your body, and your body's response to that is to start flipping switches in the wrong direction, you would like to maybe use a supplement that could help put them back in the right position. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Big deal.
But here, a lot of people get where we are in age, and it's their new normal. It's kind of like where I was. I've had I have had 10 back surgeries. I was addicted to pain pills, and that's where I was in my lot in life. And I just kind of felt I had nowhere to go. I've heard so many people say, well, you're just on that slippery slope called aging. Nothing you can do to it, do for that. But, this technology gave me hope. And so many people are hurting right now with financial stress and with the mental stress that puts on us. Maureen, can you talk a little bit about how that gene study affected you? Because you used to get called all the time, being the medical doctor. Marty, I'm sure you did as well. But yeah, I remember you saying that when that genetic study came out, that kind of set you free. It's like, here it is.
Yeah.
I kind of go, you have your feelings and you got your facts.
I love it because, we knew it was doing something, but I had to break it out because you guys before the show,
Yeah.
you have our magic wands out. That's what it felt like in the beginning, is that we were kind of waving
Right.
magic wand over.
That's why I got this.
I know. It's like, we knew, it had to do with the Krebs cycle. It had to do with the mitochondria, but we didn't really know why it did some of the things it did and why sometimes, it didn't do something you were expecting. And so when we got the gene study, it was almost like everybody got to take a big sigh of relief, because here it wasn't old, decrepit people, like half of the people on this call. I'm sorry, we're not decrepit.
I resent that remark.
I resemble it myself.
This study was done with young, healthy 35-year-olds,
Right.
yeah. And so, we always like for people to have a product experience, for them to feel different taking the product. But these are kids that are, 35-year-olds. They're very healthy. They're athletic. They're active. They don't have, they haven't gotten the degenerative joints and all that some of us get, as we get older. But they gave them 8 ounces. And this kind of changed our practice as well, because the maintenance dose is considered to be 2 ounces twice a day. A lot of us who like to burn the candle at both ends, or people who have challenges, usually double up anyway. But this study was done with 8 ounces, mostly because of the way the study was set up. It was being done for a short period of time, shorter than we usually recommend people stay on the product. So when they showed that 100% of the participants had a response, and it wasn't a small, just like Dr. Morin said, it was an upregulation of that gene by 20 to 31%. That's very significant. That's a huge change in the upregulation, or the copying of that gene, or the turning that gene on, or the production of the proteins made by that gene.
Well, that was just in 8 weeks, Maureen.
Yeah. She was saying short.
You said 8 weeks.
Yeah.
A short period of time. That's why they doubled it up. And
Yeah.
what was also really cool about it is when they stopped it, they tested them again 8 weeks after stopping it, and they went back to baseline. And so people say, everybody is like, oh, do I have to take this for the rest of my life? Well, no, you don't. You just have to take it for as long as you want to have those fabulous benefits.
Good function.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You can go back to being a couch potato and, Uncle, Dr. Warren not being able to lift up his shoulders and things like that. But, it's like working out, right? You're going to get fit. You're going to look good if you go on a diet and exercise program. And then if you stop, you're going to go back to baseline. So same.
Yeah. People ask that, and I say, well, you could go back to feeling what your age is.
Okay.
So really, what do you want to feel like? If you get off, you'll notice it pretty quick.
Okay, I'm going to show one more picture because it's kind of funny. This is Josie Aranda, and this is the 61-year-old that Ann made mention of. And that's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
She was drinking 4 ounces a day, and she did 2 applications around her mouth and then on her neck. Now, here's what's amazing is that she said right before they took this after picture that it didn't work. But here's the amazing question. I came back and asked her the very silly question. And I'll say this to anybody. If you're going to start on this technology, you must take the before picture because you'll say it did not work. But guess what the silly question was I asked her, Maureen? Would you ever stop taking the molecules? And she goes, what? That's the
No way.
silly question.
Amazing. That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, why would anybody want to go back? Marty, you don't want to go back to looking whatever, And now, Beth, I want to ask you real quick.
To me, the skin is not my driver, right? Or I wouldn't have done a half-face thing to begin with. But I do care about younger functioning heart cells.
That's right.
younger functioning lung cells, brain cells. I mean,
Eye cells.
we got to say this product is really tiny, right? These are like 4 atoms
Inside.
big. That means they're going to go right across the blood-brain barrier. They're going to, and many of the benefits you will hear people talk about if you go to some of the testimony sites is they're going to be talking about neurological benefits.
Yeah.
So if you have a product that can basically benefit any part of your body and really all of them, I agree.
But to me, Marty, that's why this is so, the big gel, whatever it is. Anyway,
I have it.
that's why this is so critical, because you can't see the changes on the inside. And my biggest fear, and the reason we do this show, is to validate with you doctors, and Beth, you're an expert, you're, global expert with this as well. But if we don't do our job well, like our founder said, people will suffer. But that's why this is such a blessing, because it validates, because all that's in here is the
Redox
molecules.
signaling. Yeah.
The same thing that we're drinking in this.
Yeah.
But you can't see the changes. But Marty, how do you deal with that? Or maybe Maureen, Beth, you as well, but I don't feel it. I've been on it a month. I've been on it, whatever. I don't feel it.
Well, I think that one of the beauties of this is that the molecules go find the biggest priority.
Yes, exactly.
And so I have somebody with a bad knee. I don't even necessarily talk to them about the drink. I want them to experience a benefit to that knee as quickly as possible, which is going to happen faster with the gel, putting it on topically. If I have somebody who wants a knee benefit, but they have a really bad heart, or they want a knee benefit, but they really have a cell growing out of control problem that's critical, quite frankly, the molecules don't care about the knee. They just don't.
Right.
And that might make you mad, but you should be thanking a designer that the molecules work the way they do, because they're going to try to work on the biggest priority first. And it may be, how many people, if they knew they were going to have a heart attack on Monday morning, would be doing something different all weekend long?
Yeah.
I think everybody, right? If you knew your heart was about to have a major problem on Monday morning is probably the worst day of the whole week for heart attacks.
Yep.
If you didn't feel it getting to that point, why is it when the cells start reversing and doing better, do you expect to feel it?
Right. Exactly.
I understand the knee, right? There's discomfort in the knee. You put the gel on, the discomfort goes down. Say thank you, whatever.
Right.
We could turn this into a prayer call if we wanted to. But the beauty there is that we have just gotten a signal that this works. I even love it when people tell me, I don't like the taste of that stuff. I said, thank you. It works. Because if you can get a flavor from drinking this, just like that, it's already signaled in your body.
Right.
And what it's signaling is, hey, your olfactory system and your taste buds are a little bit out of balance.
Yeah. Or
you would have not noticed a flavor in the product. So I actually like it when people get a flavor and fuss at me about what it tastes like. And quite frankly, that was me at the beginning too. I didn't like the flavor.
And there's science behind it. And then when they get into a balanced state, it's not going to taste like that in a few weeks.
That's right.
So that you can just push
it'll go
through
away.
Well, I remember Dr. Ward talking about that he said it tasted like the icky pool water. Then that went away. It got back to normal. Then he caught remember that, Beth? And he got he got sick from a patient, and it started tasting like icky pool water. That's when he knew immediately this is real. Because when the body's going to fight something, your immune system is going to go down. And it's going to taste like icky pool water. Whenever it does, or whenever you feel a little bit yucky,
Take more.
Drink more.
Take more.
Yeah. Now, Beth, real quick, how much, I know someone asked out here a little while ago, but how much do you give the animal, or how much are you giving them? Because I know we have a lady that, Kim Burnett, that Marty had spoken to, and she did a bottle. Okay, guys, real quick. Maureen, that,
I
come
already
on.
told them it's about
No. We
I know
always
it's
have to give Maureen a hard time.
Has a drinking problem.
I do have a drinking problem. It's sparkling water, though. I'm sorry.
I just love to do that. She knows that. She keeps doing it. I don't know why you keep doing that. You know I'm going to give you a hard time.
I know. I turned off my camera one time, and I thought I'm just not gonna drink.
Oh, who cares?
Anyway, go ahead and answer that. And you guys, I don't know if you're keeping up with the chat, but there's some fascinating questions, including somebody giving it to their fish. I was like, wait,
I gave
I heard someone gave
I gave ASEA to a
That's
fish.
expensive.
Made a big difference.
There's a webinar on animalwebinar.com. There's a webinar about a woman. She told dog stories and all sorts of things, but then she talked about her fish. She just lifted it, and I did see that. And they said, how do you give it to a fish? She just lifted it kind of up out of the water and just used a dropper and just dropped it on top of this fish, and then just let him go back in. So,
That's amazing.
it's very, very cool. And she said she was her 6-year-old was sobbing because his fish was upside down, and she thought, "What the heck? I might try something." And she brought him up, and she squeezed that, and he swam away. And she said, "I became the queen."
wow! I think I heard about that when Goldie was fins up. You know.
Oh, there you go.
So,
How much do you give a horse?
yeah, the
Yeah,
horse.
the question about, and this is the first thing that Rob Borg taught me, my doctor friend. He said, ASEA is not weight specific. It will go where it's needed. So you don't have to say, okay, I take 4 to 8 ounces a day. My horse has got to take, 2 bottles a day. That you don't have to do that, because those molecules know just exactly what, like we've just been talking about, our bodies and the horse body too, they have an innate intelligence. And when you give it these molecules, they'll immediately go where they're needed. So obviously the bigger the challenge, the more they need. I do a lot of 3-way calls with people. The other caveat to that is people will say, well, how can I get my vet to look at this? How can I get my vet? Well, I guarantee you, anybody that works with animals hurts. Their bodies hurt in some capacity. So talk to them about their own body, and then say, and guess what? It works the same on every living cell. And you can watch some animal webinars if you want, but talk to them as people first, and then they can extrapolate into thinking about how it's going to help the animals. So again, veterinarians have to be careful about that, because they cannot be construed as diagnosing or treating with a human food supplement. So we have to be careful. They have to be careful about that.
Actually, doctors have to be careful with it too.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
awesome. Now, before our time runs out, how do they find the animal webinars? I sent one of Marty's interviews out today to a couple of my animal friends, but how would they find your show, Beth?
You may want to put it in the chat, Maureen.
The link.
Please do. And it is password protected, but if you want to put the password in the chat as well, then we don't have to say it out loud. We just
Webinars, right? Animalwebinar.com.
Animalwebinar.com. No S.
No
It's
S.
Animalwebinar.com. And then it's password protected. Then you go into the archives, and there are over 35 archives there. We did one a month for many, many, many years. And then it just started getting, everybody started getting so busy and pandemic and all that kind of thing that we don't do them regularly now. But anyone on the call that has stories they would like to share, we will do a special animal webinar, and you can tell your stories. We have pictures up, and you can watch the ones that are archived, and you can see how it works. I would love to do that. And I can do that with you anytime if you have stories you'd like to share.
Yeah, and we can type the link also in United in the comments. And there's lots of animal stories in A Healthy Self. There's also a healthy page that I've gone to multiple times. Lots of great stories.
Yeah.
I'm the moderator of the Healthy Pets page. It's called Healthy Pet.
I love it.
So and I'm always, if you ask to join, I'll always include you, no problem. We have to be very careful about that site. And just like we're Healthy Self, we cannot answer questions, especially when they're medically phrased. We can't answer questions. It's just to share good stories. So you can get your questions answered through the person who invited you, or I do a lot of 3-ways. I know Marty does a ton of 3-ways about animals as well. And we're always here to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to put a plug in real quick, guys. Whoever invited you to watch this webinar, please get back to them. What else do you say about that?
Yeah.
Respect the person. We're a business. We're a small business. And I just say support us. If we invited you, get back to us. If Beth did, get back to her. But the other thing I want to offer too is the ASEAScience.com. We did talk about the genetic study, some of the other double-blind placebo studies that were done. And that is currently available on ASEAScience.com with no password. So if you want to validate, like I said, and Marty, you really didn't get over the salt water is 70% of the body is salt water, right? And that's what every cell is. But because that was one thing I looked at in the beginning, is that it just sounded silly until I saw what it did. And I cared more about the testimonials, quite frankly, is to change lives, whether it be an animal or a human.
Yeah.
Well, if you could say bread sounds silly too, if it's the ingredients for bread are flour and yeast and egg or water or milk. And yet once you mix it together, it's not all of those ingredients anymore. Now it's dough. And then you stick it in an oven and you bake it, and now it's something else. It's bread. And so, yes, salt and water is cool, but what happens in the cell and what happens at the ASEA plant is they're converted into redox signaling molecules, which makes all the difference, folks. So, I think one of the most important questions I try to get people to ask is, what if?
Yeah.
What if we're right? What if we're telling you the truth? If you blow this off, then not only might it very adversely affect your future because we're telling you can live younger, longer. What I really worry about is all the people that you could have blessed.
Exactly.
If you had learned about this and then started to share it, business, no business, share it with your neighbor and give them a chance to bless their life.
Exactly.
And that's my biggest concern too, Marty, is that people need to understand that. Invite them to come to these shows. There's other webinars that people have during the week, because if you just try it, for a month or a week, I don't feel it. That's my biggest fear, is that people then go out there and start being a negative poo-poo head and start going out there and, saying it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's my biggest concern, is it is real, but if you're going to do it, do it.
And do it long enough to see the impact. 90% see a change in 90 days.
Hey, you guys, Marty and Beth, what a treasure of experience and knowledge that you guys have shared with us tonight. Just love you guys. Love sharing the stories. Love the people that are involved in this company.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.